All right, let's jump right into this deep dive. You brought us some really fascinating sources covering parenting, emotional intelligence, family dynamics, quite a range.
Yeah, it's quite a mix. We've got ancient wisdom, modern psychology concepts like EQ and AQ, and even some AI perspectives in there.
It's a lot to unpack. So our mission today is to pull out the most valuable insights, really focusing only on what's in this material you've shared.
Right.
We want to look at what helps people thrive, what makes relationships tricky sometimes, especially across generations, and find those practical nuggets.
And the goal is to sort of connect the dots, maybe see how resilience built in childhood or maybe not built plays out later in life, how understanding these dynamics can help.
Okay, let's start with that idea of inner strength, resilience. The sources bring up AQ. Let's unpack that. What is AQ?
So AQ stands for Adversity Quotient. It's basically a measure of how well someone deals with challenges, how they face them, overcome them, adaptability, really.
Okay, so it's about bouncing back.
Exactly. And the sources make a point of distinguishing it from, IQ, raw intelligence, and EQ, emotional intelligence.
And one source actually suggests AQ might be more important for kids today. That feels like a big statement.
It is, yeah. The thinking seems to be that with how fast things change, the ability to adapt and just keep going when things get tough might be the most crucial skill.
Makes sense.
And they mentioned research by Emmy Werner, a scientist who found that kids with high AQ tend to be energetic, curious, good problem solvers. They don't just give up easily.
Right, they find a way, so that's the goal. But what about the flip side? The sources talk about what can, maybe unintentionally, weaken this AQ.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting, especially with the AI input mentioned. It seems even well-meaning parenting can make kids more vulnerable down the line. It often comes down to internal family dynamics.
How so? What kinds of things are we talking about?
Well, the material referencing AI lists about 7 patterns. The first one is overprotection. So basically jumping in too quickly to fix things or prevent any discomfort. The child never gets that practice of falling down and getting back up,
So they don't build those coping muscles.
Exactly. The AI perspective noted that learning from failure is key to inner strength. Then there's imposing expectations.
Like always having to be perfect.
Sort of, or always needing to meet certain standards to feel approved of. The child might start disconnecting from their real feelings, especially negative ones, because they're focused on pleasing others. That makes managing emotions harder later.
Treating honesty for approval.
You can feel like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Third is depriving choices. If parents make all the calls, big and small.
What to wear, what to study.
Right. The child doesn't develop autonomy, that sense of being able to decide for themselves. They might become afraid of making decisions later. The AI input highlighted that even tiny choices build independent thinking.
Little steps towards self-reliance.
Precisely. Number 4 is poor emotional modeling. Kids copy what they see, right? So if parents handle stress with anger, blame, or shutting down, kids often learn those same patterns. The source called the parent's EQ the child's textbook.
Wow, that's powerful. How we act teaches them how to act.
It really does. 5th is excessive praise without substance. Just constant, you're amazing, without tying it to effort or specifics.
Doesn't really land, maybe.
Or it makes them dependent on that external good job.
Yeah.
They might crumble under criticism because they haven't learned to judge their own effort. The AI input suggested praising the process, the effort, not just the outcome.
Focus on the trying, not just the winning.
Right. 6th is not teaching failure and responsibility. Similar to overprotection, but it's about fixing their mistakes for them.
Oh.
If the parent always smooths things over, the child doesn't learn accountability. The AI perspective was clear. Let kids fix their messes, apologize. Seeing they can repair things builds strength.
Owning it and learning from it.
Yes. And the last one, number 7, is a lack of space to be themselves. Constant comparison, pushing them into things that aren't them, overscheduling.
That pressure to fit a mold.
Yeah, it can lead to feeling inadequate, like they're different in a bad way. Respecting their pace, their personality, that's crucial.
So these 7 points together, it's not about bad parents, is it? It sounds more like common pressures and maybe some blind spots in modern parenting. They can accidentally undermine that resilience, that AQ.
That's how the sources seem to frame it, yes.
Which really leads to a tough question for anyone raising kids. How do you find that balance? Protecting them, keeping them safe, versus letting them stumble, make choices, build that grit they need.
That's the central tension, isn't it? And building that strength, as these sources suggest, is so tied to understanding emotions. Which brings us nicely to EQ, emotional quotient.
Right. The sources talk about EQ mainly in the context of work, getting ahead professionally. But obviously it's vital everywhere, especially family. And importantly, the material says it's not fixed, right? You can develop it.
Absolutely key. EQ isn't just something you have or don't. It's skills. Self-awareness, managing your own emotions, understanding others, handling relationships, things you can actually work on.
And the sources give some really concrete examples of what high EQ looks like in communication, particularly at work.
Yes, they list 5 phrases or approaches. The first is a genuine offer. Let me help you. Seeing someone struggle and stepping in sincerely builds goodwill.
Simple, but effective.
Definitely. Second, calming someone down. It's okay, don't worry. Providing that reassurance when someone's anxious or upset.
Being that calm presence.
Exactly. Third, real specific praise. You are amazing, but grounded in something real they did, not just empty flattery.
Praise that feels earned.
Right. Fourth is comforting after a mistake. It's no big deal, don't worry about it. Often, the sources say this comes with an offer to help fix it. Shifts from blame to support.
Takes the sting out of messing up.
It does. And fifth, suggesting alternatives politely. Do you think doing it this way would be better? You acknowledge their idea first, then suggest yours. Respectful collaboration.
So it's not just criticism, it's building on it.
Precisely. These aren't magic words, obviously, but they reflect an underlying awareness of others' feelings and a focus on positive connection.
And even though these examples are from work, you can totally see how they apply at home, can't you? Imagine using these approaches more often with family, offering help, calming fears, giving real praise, comforting mistakes, suggesting things gently. It feels like it could really change the tone of interactions.
Oh, absolutely. That empathy, that respectful communication, it's the bedrock of any strong relationship. And those skills become even more important as families evolve, particularly in later life stages.
It was a perfect transition to another area. These sources cover the sometimes tricky dynamics between aging parents and their adult children. One source really digs into common friction points.
Yes, it outlines 4 specific patterns that can, unfortunately, put a real strain on those relationships. Things that can turn connection into, well, a source of stress.
Okay, what are those 4 patterns?
The first is lack of boundaries, excessive dependence. This is when an aging parent might expect constant attention, maybe daily visits, and gets upset if the adult child has their own life, their own commitments.
Right, making the child feel like their life revolves around the parent's needs.
Exactly. The source example was a father pressuring his daughter for daily visits, causing annoyance. Second is poor health combined with constant complaining. It's not just about being sick, but constantly focusing on past sacrifices, maybe blaming health on hardships, making the adult child feel guilty or like they're not doing enough.
So it becomes a burden of guilt on top of caregiving.
The example was a mother making her son feel inadequate despite his efforts. Third, interfering in the adult children's own families, especially spreading gossip.
Oof, that sounds messy.
Very. Like criticizing a daughter-in-law to the son, or vice versa, it can drive wedges within the adult child's own core relationship. The source example was exactly that. A mother bad-mouthing a daughter-in-law.
Undermining their marriage or partnership.
It really can. And the fourth point is outdated views, difficulty communicating, holding on to rigid viewpoints that clash with the adult child's life, refusing to understand or respect differences. Communication just breaks down.
Like the example of the dad criticizing the gym routine.
Yeah, dismissing it as wasteful without listening. It makes the adult child just stop trying to share things, shut down the conversation.
It creates distance.
A lot of distance. And the sources emphasize that these patterns can turn gratitude into resentment, love into a burden. The adult children end up feeling tired, annoyed, distant.
So just understanding these common dynamics, seeing them laid out like this in the source material, that feel like a really helpful first step for adult children, doesn't it? It gives a name to the frustration, maybe helps them see the pattern isn't unique to them.
Recognition is powerful. It might help them respond differently, perhaps set boundaries, or just manage their own reactions with a bit more perspective, knowing this is a described dynamic.
Moving from just reacting to understanding. Okay, let's shift gears again.
Yeah.
The sources also included some fascinating, almost ancient wisdom about parenting younger kids, specifically about discipline when not to scold. These felt really timeless.
They really do. One source listed 7 specific times or situations where, according to this wisdom, scolding is counterproductive or harmful. The main idea is protecting the child's dignity and emotional state so they can actually learn.
Makes sense. Okay, what are the 7?
First, in public. The reasoning is straightforward. It's humiliating. It damages their self-respect, can make them shy or withdrawn. Correction needs privacy.
Keep it between you and them. Got it.
Second, when the child is already regretful, if they already know they messed up and feel bad,
Piling on doesn't help.
right, it can even make them defiant. They need comfort and guidance then, not more criticism. Third, before sleep. Scolding right before bed causes anxiety, disrupts sleep, which the source links to overall health.
You want them calm before bed.
Definitely. Fourth, during meals. Meals should be warm, positive. Scolding ruins appetite, affects digestion, and poisons that family connection time.
Keep mealtime sacred, sort of.
Kind of, yeah. Fifth, during happy occasions, holidays, birthdays. Scolding then is a shock. It creates bad memories, ruins the joy, impacts health according to the source.
Painting a special moment.
Exactly. Sixth, when the child is crying, crying is an emotional release. Scolding them when they're already overwhelmed just makes it worse. They need comfort, empathy first.
Acknowledge the emotion before correcting the behavior.
That seems to be the idea. And seventh, when the child is sick. A sick child is vulnerable, needs care. Scolding makes them feel worse, emotionally and maybe even physically. Focus on care.
So this ancient wisdom really highlights the how and when of discipline, not just the what. It's about being mindful, empathetic, considering the child's state. Which makes you wonder, in our fast-paced lives, how often do we react in the moment, maybe ignore these principles, and end up making our correction less effective, or even doing a bit of harm without meaning to?
It's a really valuable check, isn't it? Encouraging thoughtfulness over reactivity, a focus on the child's well-being as the foundation for guidance.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, pulling from all these different sources. We looked at building resilience, that AQ, and how certain parenting habits can unfortunately weaken it. We talked about EQ, emotional intelligence, and those practical communication skills for better relationships. Then we explored those challenging dynamics with aging parents as specific friction points, and finally drew on some ancient wisdom for a more mindful discipline.
And all these insights coming directly from the material you brought together, they offer, I think, some really actionable ways to maybe understand family dynamics better, strengthen bonds, and foster emotional health throughout life.
Definitely. And maybe a final thought to leave everyone with, kind of tying it all together from these sources. Perhaps the real point of building resilience, that AQ in kids, isn't just so they can handle the outside world, but maybe it's also crucial for them to navigate the complexities within their own families as they get older.
That's an interesting connection.
And maybe developing our own EQ, our emotional intelligence, isn't just about being a better parent or colleague, but also about being a more patient, understanding adult child, dealing with those later life family shifts. Something to think about.
A very insightful way to connect it all.
Well, thank you for bringing these sources and diving deep with us today, and thank you all for joining us.